Everyone who thirsts, come to the waters. Come and eat.
Linda, you have one?
Well, I was thinking about, the discussion that went on in the sanctuary about the unbelieving mate and how you should stick with them unless you're a wife beater or something. But
That's if they want to stay with you, it says,
if
too.
they want to stay with you, okay. Well, I read a book one time that was talking about, it said that if the person leaves, but this particular book said if they, how did it put it? If they were antagonistic to you spiritually, if they were leaving,
And the brother or sister is not bound.
you're not bound.
That's what it says.
They want to stay with you physically, but they don't want to follow your God, basically. And then if you leave or they leave, either case, then the law is that you're not supposed to get married again, right?
That's a gray area. Yeshua said that for the hardness of their hearts, if he permitted divorce, sometimes there's people that are just hard of heart, and they just do not want to live with somebody. If they're an unbeliever, I have less problem with them leaving and the believer getting remarried than if it's a believer, born again believer who leaves, and then their ex-spouse remarries, because this should not be going on between believers, born again believers. They should be working things out. But ultimately, that's up to the individual as to before them and Yehovah, and as a leader, as a Bible teacher, I would advise people what to do. But it's up to them to decide what they're going to do. But I don't have to marry them. They can go get married by the judge. If there's a questionable situation like that, I probably won't marry them. As long as they get legally married by a justice of the peace or a judge or somebody or whatever, then they're accepted in the congregation. But I probably won't marry them and set a precedence by approving something that I think is questionable. But they'd be welcomed, because I'm very particular when I perform marriages, which is not very often, I'm very particular about who I marry. I want to make sure it's pretty clean. And some things are just kind of gray in the scriptures. I think too many liberties are taken in these areas by and large. Too many liberties, and I think we need to be very, very careful.
Remarriage after divorce, it's, the ones you can't, he says, if they've been with someone else, and you cannot remarry your ex-spouse.
That's for sure.
That's the one that's the one that was the big one for Israel, because she was unfaithful to him, and yet he could not violate his own Torah and accept her back. And that's what I believe Paul's talking about in Romans there, where
Romans 7.
He died, he took the death penalty and died, and now he's a new man, risen. Now he can marry her again, because he would have been forbidden to marry her because she had been with someone else. Once there's a divorce, and he divorced her, and she was with somebody else, he can never remarry her again. And so that's the one that's against Torah, is that union coming back together.
And that's why Yeshua died and took the death penalty. You see, that's kind of the other side of the gospel message that's not preached in the churches. But he died and took upon himself the death penalty of the adulterous woman. The adultery in the Torah is a capital offense. And we all sinned and committed adultery. We, as well as all of our forefathers going back to ancient Israel. And the wages of sin is death. Anytime we go after a foreign god or idolatry or put anything ahead of the one true Elohim, we have, that's adultery, spiritually speaking. And we've all done that. And so if the death penalty has come against us, and we know that the wages of sin is death, the soul that sinneth it shall die, Ezekiel and then Romans, quoting them, we know that none of us deserve to live. Well, that's why Yeshua had to die as the husband. He died in our place. But at the same time, he can't remarry us, because that's going back to the adulterous woman. So he had to become a new resurrected God-man. And we also become a new person when we die to our old man and go into the watery grave through baptism for the remission of sins and come up as a new creation, born again, and we become a new creature or creation. So he's marrying Israel, but it's not Israel, it's redeemed Israel, and he's
a new person too.
Yeah, he's a God man. I mean, I don't understand it, but it's clever.
But that's what Paul's talking about.
That's exactly what Paul in chapter Romans 7, first 6 or 7 verses. It's very deep and very profound.
God's mercy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
But it's all legal. Yes, but it's all legal. Everything is legal according to the Torah. He does not violate
in any
anything.
way.
That's right. And that's the incredible. Most of us don't even understand the depth of the gospel message and the implications. When you understand the Torah and understand
so much more beautiful.
The two houses of Israel and all that, yeah, that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. It's incredible.
Seek the Lord while he may be found. Call upon his name. He is near, he is near, he is near. Yeshu Hashem behir matzov kerabu